Hey everyone, Trish Charleston here, also known as the Cowboy's Wife. I'm no expert on anything and I don't claim to be, but I have been alive for 56 years, so I have some funny stories. Come saddle up with me and take a ride, and maybe I can make you laugh or smile or cry or give you something to just think about that day. Let's do this. Hey, good morning, everybody. Trish Charleston here, Cowboy's Wife, and today we're going to talk to a longtime friend of our family. She was like a daughter to me. Grew up in my house, lived in the same town, or at least close by, and she was a real good friend of my daughter, Emma. And so I'm bringing on stage, this is Sierra Teegarden. If you don't know Sierra, you're missing something. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my whole life. She always kept me on my toes when she was around the house with the girls, and they were always, oh my gosh, they did everything from four-wheeling to horseback riding to chopping wood to who knows. They did some stuff. These girls were fearless, and they were great basketball players and athletes of all sorts. And the reason that Sierra is here today is that she has a story that I think needs to be told. She is, I got to thinking about her. Well, I was thinking about her the whole time that she's been through a kind of a rough time. We'll just say that's the easiest the way to say it. She's had a rough go. And the whole time, and we had discussed this earlier, and first and foremost, we want everyone to know we're not trying to hurt anybody or out anybody. This is not about anything except a redemption story. I mean, I feel like Sierra's an actual living, breathing Bible story, much like myself. I mean, I was, and I'll tell you every day, I was the woman at the well. I mean, and I think all of us were or are. And the reason that she wants to do this is because she wants to, if anybody is trapped in this situation that she was in, she wants to help them get out. And I think that hearing her story and how that she was able to get out and to literally hear God again, which that's like my favorite part of the whole story. And I just ruined it for everyone. But that's it, because we do that. We just get lost. I mean, you're there and you're not gone, but you're gone because you're checked out because you don't even know what's happening. So I'm going to turn it over to Sierra. I'm going to kind of ask her some questions as we go. Sierra, say hello.
Hi.
Okay, so I think first and foremost, what's really important for everyone to know that no matter how bad things get, God never leaves us. He never quits us. He never stops loving us. And there's nothing that we can do that is so bad that God doesn't forgive you. So you go ahead and tell what happened, because for the people that don't know who you are, they have no idea what I'm talking about. And you go, girl.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Sierra. I just turned 26, which is weird because the older you get, literally the wiser you get. That is true. They did not lie about that. I thought I was wise at the ages probably from 12 to 20. I thought I was the smartest I would ever be. Turns out I was the dumbest I would ever be at those ages.
You were funny.
Much like all of us. I was funny.
You were funny.
Trauma creates funniness. That's the truth. Humor.
Yeah, it masks a lot of things. Yeah.
It does. So pretty much I grew up in the church. I grew up going to church every week. My grandpa was a preacher. My dad was the preacher's son, but much to my, amaze, that he wasn't the crazy preacher's son. So I took that upon myself to be the crazy preacher's granddaughter that I thought had to take place. I got married really young. This is kind of where the whole story will start. So if you knew me growing up, I was a hard worker. I loved sports. That's pretty much all I cared about, was working in sports. Dated people on and off like everybody does in high school, but nothing really serious. I was married. I did meet my ex-husband in my small town that I grew up in, and it kind of just took off running from the start. We never really stopped and thought about anything, really. We were just madly in love, and that's what madly in love people do. But I also went to college to become a teacher, and I taught second grade, and I loved it. Kids are crazy. Kids are insane. They say the funniest things. They say the most hurtful things, and they just say it and they just walk away. But that's a little backstory. So I got married really young. I went to school to be a teacher.
How long did you guys date?
Probably like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, before you got married?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we dated 6 months. We've been married 32 years. I cannot say anything about short engagements.
I know.
I am the queen of it.
I can't say anything either because I'm like, it just works for some people and it doesn't work for others. And I don't think there's really a rhyme or reason to it.
Right.
But I actually disagree with that. I think there is a rhyme or reason to it. It's if God's in the middle of your relationship, it will not fail.
There you go.
That back. There is
any relationship, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys got married. You were a teacher. What was his occupation?
He was a fiber optic technician, so he did similar work to a lineman, more blue collared. So long days working outside pretty much. He worked in my small town and then he got a job opportunity in Springfield, Missouri. So we nixed the area. We decided like that's what we were going to do. We were going to move. That was a pretty big deal because nobody really in either of our families had kind of moved away.
Yeah.
Away as in an hour away from a big city, as in Springfield. People called it Spring Vegas, and now I know exactly why they called it Spring Vegas.
Oh, I've never heard that before. And I went to college in Spring Vegas. I missed it.
Yeah. I think I might have given its name on the map as Spring Vegas.
Oh, no.
So we move up to Springfield.
Because, I mean, he apparently teaches anything. I'm hoping I'm going to name my pond out here the Gulf of Trish.
I love it.
So, okay, this
we
is
moved up here. I started teaching. And throughout this whole time, it's like we never really kept God in the middle of things. We were both, I guess you could say, we were both relatively raised within the church. I didn't know all of his family's deep backstory of how the church was involved with them, which we talked about that. But it was mainly, I knew where I was with my walk with God, and it was good. And it was okay that at that time our relationship wasn't really rooted in it. We didn't go to church. We didn't read the Bible together. We didn't really pray together. It was just kind of like, you've got your thing. That's cool. Leave it over there. Which wasn't just necessarily like his doing. It was also me being very immature in my faith and being like, that's good enough for me. Like just knowing that I'm a Christian, that's good enough for me. Now where I'm at, I know that that's definitely not good enough for me. So that's kind of the backstory. And then when we moved to Nixa, I don't really know what struck the idea of doing it.
Okay, they don't even know what we're talking about. So we got to tell them what we're talking about. So
So I used to do an occupation that's, I guess the nice way, the more like TV way that you could say it, was the adult industry. I feel like that's more of like a good way to put it, which what that is in modern day is not a brothel. Nowadays, it's a social media platform called OnlyFans. And you can do that any way you desire to do that. You can do that. It's basically a free platform that you can just post videos, pictures. It's like a blog, but it's more Instagram style. So it's pictures, videos, reels, stories. You can direct message people on there. So I left teaching and that became my occupation, was essentially selling myself. You can take that for what it's worth. I'm not going to go in depth of that, but that became my occupation for about, I think it was close to a year, but it was more about just 9-10 months.
So whose idea was it? Was it yours or his?
It was, to be honest, it was probably mutual in the beginning.
How did it even start?
That's what I really don't recall. I think we had a friend that we went to one of his cousin's weddings, and there she had a friend who was probably 5 or 6 years older than me, and she was this hot bombshell blonde from Florida. And I think she had started doing her OnlyFans platform when cosmetology school kind of wasn't working for her. She had gotten her cosmetology license, but I can remember looking at her, and it was kind of how I looked at Dolly Parton, to be quite honest. Like, you're just completely astonished by how beautiful this person is, and she had fake boobs like I had fake boobs, so I was like, wow, this is somebody that I can kind of relate to, because nobody else could I relate to, honestly. So I think she had started hers, And I had kind of talked to her and been like, well, how much money are you making? And she was like, well, I'm making over $100,000 a year. And I was like, well, you're kidding me. and all you're doing is posting pictures of your feet? Like, that's crazy.
Her feet.
That sounds like a good deal. It doesn't now. But when you think about it, it's like that has no labor intensity. You're not having to stress yourself out in a classroom for 8 hours a day and not get paid what you should. You get to take bathroom breaks. You get to take food breaks. You don't have to deal with parents. I didn't think about the fact that I'd have to deal with my own parents, but that's beside the point. But just where I was at with teaching, I think the overworking of how they treat a first year teacher, I was kind of over it. I was not being supported in the classroom. I was having to work like 12 hours a day and I was only getting paid for literally maybe 6, to be quite honest. I didn't even feel like I was getting paid for all 8 hours that I was there. So it was kind of a thing where it was, we'll start out just doing easy things, you could say, like, yeah, feet pictures are easy. Okay. Well, knowing now what I know then, it's always, the devil always gets in your ear and says, start easy or start small.
Ironically, the scripture says, don't let the devil have a foothold. What ironic statement that is, because once you got the foot out there, then that's when the cameras started coming up, huh? Yeah. And so when I heard about this, because obviously it came about, you've got all these kids are on social media now, and I try at all costs to stay off of social media, except to do my own stuff. I'm a very terrible Facebook friend because I only read my own stuff, and that's terrible. But I listen to podcasts and things, but I try to just listen to good things. I just don't want any more poison in my brain. I've put enough of that in my life
seriously
years ago, and so I'm just trying to pump it full of good stuff. And so when this rumor started circulating, I'm like, there's no way. I mean, there's just no way. And I mean, you have always been a stunningly beautiful girl. And so do you think, was it just about money?
For me, it was 100% about money. I've been such a hustler my whole life that I've always been money focused, and that's a big problem. And that's the way that the devil got to me, was because he said, this is a way that you can make money. And when my girlfriend had told me how much she made, that became my goal, essentially. And I surpassed her goal, believe it or not.
Whoa. Like yearly?
Yeah, within that 9-10 months, I surpassed making over about $100,000, which is just disgusting. It's crazy. We blew through that money. So we got friends with a lot of bad people, got into a lot of other bad things. Drugs, alcohol. Those are the bad things. Those are terrible things. Should not be given to 20, 21, 22-year-olds to just do with what they want to. Right. Because they will do with what they want to.
Well, and the phones too. I mean, people don't understand. So for this, you had to have a subscription. So that's how you made money. People had to subscribe to your page. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's how it worked. Yeah, it was pretty much like an Instagram page, but it's just a different platform, and you had to pay for it. Yeah, and when you would get a new subscriber, you could see how many count that you had, essentially. People could create their own profile name. They could create their own page.
Yeah, so you obviously didn't use your own name, so you had somebody else's name. Yeah. And so you're in a marriage. How is this working out? Was he not a jealous person?
We were both jealous people, and that's why for me, it was entirely about the money. Now I see back on how it negatively affected him and how that's not fair for him in all the ways. But it was also not fair for me because I was the majority of the one doing the things that were asked of me to do. So it ultimately should have been a red flag that this is not going to work. But we told each other, this can work. It's about the money. It means nothing, which none of it meant anything. And the things that people will ask you to do on an OnlyFans page are absolutely outrageous. So the majority of it, we laughed about things. We found it humorous that people would pay money for this. We found it funny. It didn't affect our relationship with each other because it was basically like a job. It was like, go and do this, and then
Did you go into
we'll
an
just
actual
watch a movie.
studio, or were you at home?
No, it was all Pam and Tommy at home videos.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So was he in them
yeah.
too? He did it too with you?
Yes. Well, pretty much it was like you could take requests. So
Oh, so people would literally ask you to do something, then you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they'd pay you before, and it was just like a business transaction essentially. And then they couldn't screenshot, they couldn't download. It was all just on that Safari web page.
So you weren't able to. Nobody was able to screenshot it.
It stated that they couldn't, but I was aware that was taking place. It's just like me and you right now. When you're on a FaceTime, you can screenshot.
Oh,
just within the platform, it didn't tell me if they screenshot. It didn't tell them if I screenshot. But there was rules and guidelines, kind of like
but there was no safety measure on that thing to make sure it wasn't happening.
Yeah, no.
So you talked about the red flags. First of all, I can't imagine you taking orders from anybody, and then because you've always been very independent, but in that
it pretty much broke me down to basically nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you told me so. You grew up, like you said, in a very religious background, good, wholesome family. Mm-hmm. They instilled in you from birth God's word, and you said you used to always hear God, but you also told me when we had talked before that in that time it was just absent.
Yeah, I think that in little ways I heard him, but I kept telling myself to ignore it, to keep running. That I kind of was thinking about it this morning. It's like I grew up in the church and I took that for granted, and I think a lot of us take that for granted.
Yeah,
because you just assume that when you're older, you're just going to inherit your parents' religion. You're going to inherit everything that they've worked hard for. It's just going to become yours. And I didn't mean that in terms of like finances or land or anything. No. But it was just basically like, my parents have done it, so it can't be hard. It's just gonna be mine. Like I am what they are.
Well, I literally talked about this last week. You're talking about your inheritance has a lot more to do with money. I mean, we want to leave a legacy, for our kids. So when these things were happening, you didn't think about your folks at all?
Oh, I did every day. It was pretty awful. That's why we kind of stopped having a relationship with them, was because they for the most part kept saying, this is not going to work. This is not godly. This is not what you need to do. Right. And looking back, I don't know why I didn't listen to them. I think it was because I was putting my marriage before everything else, which in some ways is what you're called to do, but not in the ways that I was doing it.
Right. So right. The husband is the head of the household. I mean, the husband is, and that's by God's design. We are supposed to do that. We're also supposed to be fervently praying and things. You said that you guys never sat down and read the Bible. I think in 32 years of marriage, maybe we've done that twice. That's also not something that we do together, and I'm not proud of that. That we also don't pray together. I went on this little tangent not long ago, and I made him start doing it and he's completely receptive to it. It's not that he isn't, but I mean, my husband, and he is a busy guy, and he's just like, let's go. And so I literally taped these prayers in our closet so that I could say them, and it lasted about 3 days and he's fine with doing it. I think it's really, really important that people do that, but church is just as important. It's a commitment, and it doesn't save you to go to church. There's a lot of bad people that go to church, it doesn't have anything to do with that. But when you quit hearing that voice, that's when you're in trouble. When you quit hearing that, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, or, this is dangerous, that still small voice. And you said there was a time that you just didn't hear it anymore.
Yeah, and I like how you explained that because I don't think I ever stopped hearing God's voice of reason. I think I stopped putting in my own voice of reason and I just ignored and I became complacent. We didn't have a bad marriage outside of what was taking place inside of it, if that makes sense. And I think that that didn't affect us until years after, until we had agreed that I should stop, that it's not worth it, that it's not worth the money,
So
that I'm
how
worth
did
more.
well, yes, yes, you
Yeah,
are.
it's kind of
So
like a
it was
no-brainer.
I you had
Mhm.
so many people praying for you, whether you knew it or not. And I don't know if you could ever feel it, but you had so
I
many people
could definitely, yeah.
praying for you. And I hung your picture on, and I'm going to cry now. I have a Christmas ornament of you, picture of you and Emma. And every year hang it on the tree. I hang
Mhm.
every ornament I've ever had. I have one that I had when I was in kindergarten. I still hang everything on the tree. And so I reached out to you. And you immediately, I just said, I'm just thinking about you. You know, I can't even remember what I said, but I just said to Merry Christmas and I love you or something like that.
Mhm.
You immediately texted me back. And it was so good to just, even though I didn't hear your voice, I just
Mhm.
knew that you were still there. You know, you were still in there. And I didn't know all the things that were happening. And I was certainly am not a fan or a member. I
Yeah.
don't know how you say that, but
Yeah.
I was a fan of you, and so I never gave up on you, and I knew that other people weren't giving up on you. And so, how did you finally stop? How did it finally stop? I mean, when did you just say, "I'm not doing this anymore"?
It was basically I mean, it was more mutual, everything was pretty much we tried to make decisions, like, as a couple because there were ways that we were like, "This needs we're stronger than the damage that this is doing." We thought we were stronger than the damage that it was doing. We weren't, and now I see that. Um, but pretty much it was I was getting stalked in real life by some people in the Springfield area. Um, I was
So,
being treated differently at the workplace. I was a bartender, and I
so
was pretty
people
much getting harassed. People were
people
figuring out
recognized you. I
yeah,
mean,
people
yeah,
did it on they recognized me. They did things on purpose that were uncalled for. I just was like I just so am so uncomfortable with everything in my life that it's got to stop. And he was also like, yeah, it's got to stop. Like this is not worth it at all anymore. This is not something that you like we need to be doing anymore. Um, so pretty mutual. And then um, me realizing then I thought we were in control of it. A lot of it started coming out of how it had affected him and how it affected me. We kind of just didn't talk about it for a while. We were in the process of he was always buying and selling vehicles. Um, I was starting my new job at Lululemon, so we were in a transition to where we had just sold our house and we had bought some land and planned to build a house. So we were moving into a rental house in the median time to kind of get some things situated with finances because we had ran through all of that money, so we had to reassociate, funds to this, funds to that. He had a really good job, so we were never hard up for money ever. We could have just survived solely on his income. I would have never even had to have had a job. Um, so that kind of came into play of, we don't need you to be doing that. There's no point in that. There was never a point in that. Um, and I had, like you said, I've always been a funny person, and I've always been someone who didn't really care about what people thought about me. I think that's good and bad.
yeah,
I think now I care a lot more about how I make people feel
yeah,
as opposed to if they like me or not. I could
yeah.
still care less if people like me or not, but now it's more about if they don't like me and I know that, I still need to make sure that I'm making them feel loved and cared about.
Yeah,
So
you
I
and I
think,
were very similar in a
yeah.
lot of ways because I was the same way. I, and I'm so different than I used to be, but growing up, like I would have never joined a sorority. I mean, there was no way I
Yeah,
was going
me
to follow
neither.
anybody's orders. You know, it's like I pass. You know, I always kind of was very independent, and um, but humor, I think, also was it's a defense mechanism too
Yeah.
for me. When my dad was dying of cancer, you know, my family get mad because I was always cracking jokes, but my dad appreciated it because what do you want to do? Sit around and talk about your cancer? I mean, let him laugh, a little bit. It was terrible, but I always tried to find
Mhm.
something funny, and I could always kind of make him laugh, even in days. And I think we use it as a defense mechanism. But you and I have always just been funny. We're just funny and
Yeah.
funny, and we also get things that are funny that maybe aren't funny. We might think,
Yeah. Yeah.
but so after it stopped, and do you feel like now, how do you start over after something like that? I mean,
Yeah.
in
So
your
for
marriage,
me, I never it never really affected me in the ways that it affected him. And that's okay because we're all human beings. We all, get jealous different. We all love different. We all hate different. We all have different opinions. None of us are the same, and that's a good thing. Thank goodness there's nobody else out there like me because
me too.
Lord help them. Like he's helped me, Lord help them. But I think I was quickly able to it never affected the marriage for me. I just was
Did you
personally affected by it. And I
did you
think for
stay in the
him,
same town? Did you stay living in the
yeah, we did. We just moved, I think 10 minutes away. We lived in Nixa and then we moved to Springfield.
Okay,
But I felt like people were watching me everywhere I went. I felt scared. I felt embarrassed. I felt disturbed. I just felt mad. Um, but I think the rebuilding took place within the last 2 years of my life. It's still rebuilding. It's never going to be like totally done. I still struggle with things to this day about it.
sure.
Um, but I think for him, just basing his thoughts and feelings off of his actions and what's taken place was that it destroyed him in different ways than it destroyed me.
Sure.
Which is fair, and he has every right to do whatever he wants to do, to think whatever he wants to think.
In the time it was
Um,
happening, though, he was encouraging.
yeah, it was never a you need to stop. When it did get to that point, like we immediately stopped, and it
Yeah,
wasn't. I didn't push past. I didn't. I mean, it was very much a business transaction, and this was my job. So if I stop this job, do we have something else for me to do?
yeah.
Um, but to him, he did not see it as a business transaction, which is where things come into place. That if God was in the center of their relationship, that would have never taken place.
Right.
Um, so in
So
some
you
ways, it's
started
like I
working.
have to take. Yeah, I started working part time as a bartender, and then I kind of stopped working for about 6, 7 months while we moved. And I was helping some friends on the side with social media because I love making videos. I love doing marketing type stuff. I wish I would have went and got a degree in marketing because I think I could really knock the socks off some billboards or something for businesses. But
Right.
um,
No, no pun
vi-
intended.
yeah, literally. Um, video content I just really like. I like making it, and I think that that's I was using one of my gifts that I had been given for the wrong use, and I think a lot of us do that,
Yeah.
and you don't recognize it until you're out of it, and sometimes that does take 4 years, 4 hours, 4 months, 4 days.
It absolutely does,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people get sucked into that. So, how long did you stay married after it ended? The
Okay.
social
So
media platform ended.
yeah, we we
I
had
mean,
been
did
married
you
up
instantly
until
start fighting after,
yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah,
pretty much. I look back and I can tell that for him it had probably been over for probably the last 2.5, 3 years.
you stayed married 3 years, 3 more years?
hmm
Wow.
Yeah. Which there were a lot of good, but there was a lot of bad. And I think that, like I said, it affected him in different ways that he didn't know it affected him, that I didn't know it affected him.
Yeah.
Um, I've always been the type of person that's like super confrontational. Like if I need to talk to you, I'm going to come up and get in your face and be like, "Hi, I need to talk to you about this."
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't like that, and they hold things in, and they hold that resentment in, and they don't know how to get it out. But it also yeah, it just affects people differently. And I knew growing up in the church that when you sin, it's communal. So it's going to affect more than just yourself. more than just like your immediate spouse. It's going to affect a lot of people. And I had started, once I quit doing the social media OnlyFans account, I had immediately tried to start rebuilding some things, whether that was with family, whether that was with friends that I hadn't talked to, but it kind of never felt, in the marriage, it never felt two-sided. There was not really a lot of effort being put into it, but I was willing to continue to try and to continue to do what we thought we needed to do. And now looking back, it was still, we weren't going to church. We weren't doing the things that you're supposed to do.
Right.
So that still never made sense to me. But we had stayed married until 2024, in August of 2024, and that's when I had found out some things that he had been doing, and basically was I needed to move out of the house that we were living in together because there was someone else taking my place within the house. So I was homeless for about ultimately a month and a half, but I had found someone that was going to let me live with her that I had known actually from the church I grew up in. She was a college roommate of a girl that I had known from growing up, and she actually lived in the Springfield area, and we had crossed paths a few times within the last 4 years, which is a God thing, totally a God thing. But she let me live with her from end of August to almost October, and then just since this last October till now, I've been living on my own in an apartment in Springfield. But pretty much from August till now, it's been cut off, no money, no anything. So I've been, if you want to talk about rebuilding, it's brick by brick, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and you're working constantly. I mean, you're to keep your mind and things busy. So we need
But within the last year, my bodybuilding took place.
Okay. So how
that
did that start while you were still married? Did you start doing that? Okay.
Yeah. So that started last January. Within the last 3 years, I had lost weight, gained weight, been in the gym, not knowing how to actually properly nourish myself with food, just thinking that if you eat a crap ton of protein and hardly any carbs, you're going to get huge, massive muscles, and that's just not how it works. So I had, through some mutual friends at the gym we had been going to, I've gone to the same gym for almost 4 years now. It's called Rage, and it's up in Springfield. And a guy friend of ours, meaning of me and my ex's, he competed in bodybuilding, and he had won his pro card. And he's the stereotypical, when you think of somebody that bodybuilds, he has neck veins and neck bulges, and he looks like a bull that you guys would sell on the farm. Like, he is a massive unit. And he had said something to me about, would you want to, even just be my client, and I'll train you, I'll do a cheaper rate just because you have more influence, and I want to help get you back to a healthy weight. Because I was like, I'm 30 pounds from what I used to be a year and a half ago. I don't feel good. I don't think I look good. I need help. And he was like, let's just start a training plan, $100 a month, and we'll see what that does. And from January to March, I almost lost all 30 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was just from eating correctly and working out, like doing cardio. And he's like, okay, you need to think about doing a bodybuilding show, because he's been training for bodybuilding for the past 10 years. And he's like, I've never once seen someone have this much progress this quickly and not look awful from losing all of that fat. He's like, you've kept all of your muscle that you had. Like, you have amazing leg genetics. Like, shout out to my mother, because she has really nice legs naturally. So it just kind of clicked. And then I decided to do a show last July. And the show was in Chicago. And I trained and kept eating right and kept pushing myself to the limits with cardio.
How many hours a day are we talking?
It was like an hour and a half of being on the Stairmaster. Yeah. So climbing, intense workouts, like pushing yourself till failure with every single set. And then my eating rations, I call them rations because they were basically like rations. We would weigh out all of my protein. So all my chicken and beef that I ate, we weighed out all my veggies, we weighed out my rice. And it was all documented throughout the whole thing of like, you're eating this much, this much, this much. And he calculated my calories and my macros. And
So you were married during this time.
yeah, and he was pretty supportive for the most part.
Was he doing it too? Did he work out too?
He actually, his love of the gym kind of is what got me into it. I think seeing my progress was exciting for him, but I think it also probably discouraged him and made him feel like, he kind of loved bodybuilding first, and he kind of taught me a lot of what I knew, and then it wasn't really paying off for him, but it was paying off for me.
So he got kind of jealous.
Probably more resentment because, we had built a platform for me, and then we abolished it. And now it's almost like this was a new platform that was going to form for me. And he probably didn't know where that was going to take me. Which is where I wish we would have talked like normal humans and normal adults, because he would have seen and would have known that that's not what this avenue was about for me, that it was about not me at all, essentially. Because there's no way that anybody who doesn't train for bodybuilding can train for 7 months and win a show. And I didn't just win, I won my class, and then I won the overall.
Wow.
And I won the overall against veteran competitors who were wanting to win the overall so that they could in turn place at nationals and win their pro card within the same year. So there were girls up on stage with me that had plans from July competing to win their pro card probably by December.
Wow.
And I was just this little blonde walking up on stage, waving at everybody and smiling. And to be quite honest, it was like, it felt natural. I felt like that's where I should be. So that's why I've kind of held on to bodybuilding, because I'm like, it drives my hustle, but it's in a different way that's like super healthy for me to be doing, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So how about mentally with the bodybuilding? You feel like it doesn't mentally?
I think I had started when I had gained those 30 pounds within the previous year. So 2023 was the year after I had stopped doing the OnlyFans. I had stopped doing pretty much any work at all. I was bartending some here and there, but I didn't start working at Lululemon until 2024. No, 2023. The end of 2023 in May. I've almost worked there for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get timelines.
Yeah.
2023, I started working at Lululemon. We were in Springfield, and we had found that friend at the gym. And he was like kind of a mentor to us, kind of just a friend that we saw here and then. But he was like, you guys, you should get back in the gym. You should join this gym. So we did. And then 2023 to 2024 was when I kept gaining weight, kept feeling unhappy, knowing I needed to change. But it was more of like, I knew the change that needed to happen was I needed to get my relationship with God in check. Like, that's always been at the back of my head, was like, that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. But I never really shared that. I never told anybody that. I kind of was just like internalizing it, knowing that I was still in control. And I think that's where the last 5 years have, the biggest thing looking back is that all I was telling myself was that I'm in control. Like, I can do this. I thought I knew better than what I had been taught. I thought I knew better than what people were telling me, and I did not.
I think the whole world is inundated with self-help, self-this, self-that, self-image, it's all about you, me, and it's not,
That's so not, yeah.
No, I mean, that's the saddest part, is you can't do anything by yourself, and you're created that way on purpose. And you mentioned that, you've been using your gift wrong. And I think we all do that. Well, first of all, sometimes we don't even realize that we have it. I mean, if you would have told me 40 years ago, or when I, maybe longer, that God would use me to write stories. I mean, what? I'm no least person that you would have imagined. If you knew me in high school, you'd be like, yeah, that chick is not going to be writing books about Jesus. And so I think he uses the least of us to make the biggest impression. And that's what I think that what, well, I got on I'm chasing two rabbits here. Back to the self thing. Anytime we're putting ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
even in your marriage, I mean, if you guys would have talked about God, like you said, like you've had that nagging in your,
Yeah.
but you also, I mean, I know what you're talking about, where you think that,
It'll work itself out, that,
well,
you
yeah,
know,
like
yeah.
it's just, and if you're praying about it or whatever, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't. You have to just be bold about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
you ever think about just going to church by yourself? Just,
I did. I had mentioned it, like we should start going again, but I never did. And then when I got the job at Lululemon, I ended up having to work every Sunday. So that kind of knocked it out of the cards again. And for me, it was kind of like, this is annoying because I ended up having to work Sundays when I know I'm being like pulled and told to go to church. Um, but I never really shared it. And it was kind of just like, it is what it is now at this point. But I had found ways from 2023 to 2024. I didn't really make any, like you said, bold moves. It kind of felt like with my relationship with God. But when I started training for my show in 2024 in January, throughout the process of training, something kind of clicked for me, and it was like I was almost like awakened and remembered that I was super worthy, that I was super loved, that um, a lot of what I had done in the past, most people can forget about it. I might be the center of gossip, but then they walk away and go into their own lives and they forget, but I'm the one that has to live with that.
sure. But you are forgiven. I mean, you are worthy. And I think that he's going to use you to do amazing things. I think he already has. You had told me previously when we talked that, when you were younger, you knew all these memory verses and all these things, but that it just went kind of blank for a while. But then recently you said you're hearing it again. And I just think
Yeah.
that's super cool, because you're all those seeds that were planted are sprouting again. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you feel that you're worth so much more than a price tag.
Yeah.
And and I just hope that the fact that you were homeless and you didn't call me, I really just want to smack you. I mean,
I know. I want to
I
smack
really,
myself.
I really would have never let you stay on the
I
street.
know.
I mean, ever. And you know how to get into my house, so don't ever do that again. So,
Yeah. I
but
think that's just the way that the enemy, for me, that's the way that he kept his grip on me. And I was fleeing and he knew that he had lost me. But just those little lies that I kept telling myself of isolate yourself and don't tell anyone and don't ask for help. And
yeah, and that is just a lie, because I mean, you have to surround yourself with people that are warriors, and you have grown
yeah,
up in
I've
a
done
house
that
full
now.
of warriors your whole life, and and I know that, I mean, that they were just praying without ceasing, and I know that's
Oh,
why that
yeah.
you're back and just
Mm-hmm.
doing good. I know it's going to be a long haul, but
Yeah.
I'm just so happy to see you healing and smiling, and your
Mm-hmm.
beautiful self. So,
Yeah, I definitely feel like myself again. And my relationship with my family is a great one.
that's
It's
good.
full of forgiveness, which I didn't expect from them.
Of course it would
But
be.
I
That,
know.
I mean, that's the whole thing. If you can't forgive,
Mm-hmm.
then you're kind of missing the point. I mean, that's why Jesus died. But we also got to own it. We got to own it and
Yeah. Yeah,
repent.
most definitely.
And you've done that. So, what would you tell a girl that's in your situation, somebody that's doing this for a living now, and how to get out? What would your advice be to her?
I would say it's a lot of like the stereotypical you're worth more, but
But you really are.
yeah, but you really are. And I thankfully was in a position where I didn't have to do that to make a living. And I think that some people are not as fortunate.
Right.
So that does suck, but there are outlets for where if you need out of a situation that you can get out of a situation. A lot of churches I didn't realize had outreach that you can go and get help with. And a lot of local, not even local, but corporate businesses, if you are going through a situation, have like relief funds that you can have access to. Um, but pretty much if you feel like you're in a situation that you shouldn't be in, that don't ignore that feeling
Right.
because it's there for a reason and it's probably from God.
Yeah.
If you feel like you have control, that's a lie and that's from the devil.
That's right.
So you have to get tough about telling yourself the honest truth. Because you know it.
Yeah.
But telling yourself and repenting, like you said, it's not for babies.
No.
It's not for weak people. And that's why you notice the people around you that you surround yourself with. If you just take a second and look into their life, you can tell if they're taking ownership of their actions or not.
Well, and the sad thing is that some people have never been taught differently, and so they don't know, they don't feel that. They don't have the background that you had. They don't have the upbringing that you had. So they're lost, and that's kind of our job to help those people. That is our job. We're supposed to, find the lost. So how do you think that maybe there's a way God could use you to do that? You're talking about your social media knowledge and how, and you also told me your view of social media is completely different now. Explain that a bit.
I had saw a video that was explaining how social media is kind of like the platform that David stood on to peek at Bathsheba, and it's like
that's exactly right.
That's crazy. It's such a good tool, but it's like most things of the world. If you don't take it in moderation, it's a sin. And it's like, most things nowadays you're not monitored on. It's just you for yourself. You're fitting for yourself and you're on the honor system.
Right.
And I think the honor system has gone out the window, but it needs to be reeled back in the window.
Exactly. Well, literally, I mean, my coffee cup is Philippians 4. I'm blind and I don't know my Bible verses, but it's you'd think I know it because it's one of my most favorite things. Philippians 4:8. Think about such things. Paul says we're supposed to make things that are true, pure, noble, right, admirable, excellent, lovely, praiseworthy. When you're not thinking about such things, then that's when the devil likes to come in. Just exactly like what in the world was David doing looking at her in the first place? I heard a podcast and we all talk, we all think about the Garden of Eden and Eve, getting all the blame for eating the apple, or the fruit, which she did. But why was she even near the tree to begin with? It's the same thing with David. It's like we're all, the sad thing is sin is fun.
That's what's scary.
It is fun. I mean, it's fun. It is, but we know it's wrong, but the devil makes it really appealing. And that's the part that's hard. And that's the part, the only way that you can combat it is if you got Jesus in your heart and on your side, and he wants to be. You just have to ask him.
Yeah.
But gosh, I'm so proud of you. I am so and I mean, talk about a weight lifted from my heart and my prayer list. I mean, I'm going to be praying for you constantly because I know you've got a lot of struggles, and I want you to be safe, honey. I mean, just stay away from the crazies because I just know you're going to do great things, and maybe this is something you can do. Maybe it's going to be like an outreach to get those girls out.
I really thought about that. That there's
seriously. I mean, just reaching out to them on a I don't know. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be doing this on social media right now because we're like blowing the whistle on these crazy people. But that whole page needs to be shut down.
Yeah, it really does.
I don't know how to make that happen, but it's something that needs to be looked at, you know?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
definitely crazy. It just
yeah,
makes me scared. It makes me scared basically for how the world works,
yeah,
but I also know that, you know, we all have control essentially of our own actions and what we surround ourselves with and what we look into and what we watch and what we hear. So,
that's right.
you know, if you can't change a lot, you can start with yourself, you can start with your home, you can start with your friends.
Yep.
You can control some things in your life. So start controlling those things because
Yeah, I mean,
that's
there's
going to help build they build on each other. The
yeah.
bad builds on each other and the good can also build on each other.
Yes, and I mean, even little things, so, like music, you've been sending me songs that you've been listening to. I
Mhm.
mean, keep those Jesus jams going because it
I know.
matters.
It
I mean,
does.
it matters what you hear, it matters what you see, it matters who your friends are. I mean, all of those things matter. I'm turning into this old, crazy church lady. You know what I did yesterday? I just I don't drink very much. I mean, I'm not a big boozer. I mean, not that I didn't used to be. I mean, I did. I loved it. And it makes me very uncomfortable now. And God's all up in my business about it. And we have this beautiful bar. You haven't seen the new house. You've got to come
No,
over.
I haven't.
But and I really struggled with even doing it, putting it in our house but I've always loved an old saloon style bar. I've always wanted one. I just think they're beautiful pieces of
Mhm.
furniture. They're just beautiful architecture. And so I wanted one. Well, the second they started building it, I'm like, oh, I just have a bad feeling about this. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't want it. It's the center of attention in our room. And I had all these pretty whiskey bottles lined up. Man, I took all those suckers down yesterday. The cowboy's going to be walking in and be like, "Where's my stuff?
Yeah.
Where is my stuff?" And
Mhm.
he's not, we're not just we're not big boozers or anything, but
Mhm.
occasionally, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having a drink, but everything in moderation. Just like you were
Yeah.
talking about with food, and I need to honestly hire you to help me eat because I'm terrible about I don't know anything about healthy eating, but I do know that anything God makes is good for you.
Yeah.
So you should just eat all the things that God made. If we didn't eat all this processed crap, we'd all just look like you, but we don't.
Yeah.
Man, that
Yeah,
macaroni
kind of.
calling my name.
Yeah, that's true, and I mean, yeah, it takes me back to, like, sin is communal, but also your good works are communal, so if you do good works, that's gonna portray into other people's lives, and
Yeah,
the fact that, some people not everybody's sin is the same, not everybody's temptations are the same, so just making
right.
sure that you know yours and you stay away from yours. Don't worry about other
Exactly.
people, you just gotta worry about yourself.
That's exactly right. And I literally had a conversation with someone yesterday, and my sins are not your sins. I
Mhm.
mean, I can have a drink and not have 10, whereas some people can't. That
Yeah,
one
I
just
can't.
starts that ball a rolling. But
Mhm.
that's another thing that I think that you've probably got in your future is maybe writing a book about food, and health,
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I
and
always struggled with how
what's
I looked growing up and the food and the
yeah,
drinking, and now
what's poison
it's
for
like,
your
here's
not just your body
yeah,
but your
it's
soul,
separate. Yeah.
and how it makes a difference in how you look and live and feel. And your body's a temple, and God took
Yeah.
the temple very seriously. In the Old Testament, he talks about all the things that it had to be. Well, they literally tell us that when after you know Jesus came, he's within us. We are the temple. And so I think we need to do a better job of representing it. I mean, we just do.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, instead of just being a bunch of lazy slugs all the time. So,
Mhm.
well,
Yeah,
honey,
the bodybuilding has definitely it's like the avenue that I needed to
yeah,
get myself up and to get myself back to who I was, and I think that that's something that I need that's gonna be my avenue to share. I just
yeah,
don't really know what that's gonna look like, but
yeah. But you're
I
going
don't
to
need to
get
know
it.
yet.
No,
Yeah.
you're going to get it. Well,
Mhm.
thank you for talking with me today. And like I said, I'm just so proud of you. And I'm so glad that, um, that you're feeling the love and the forgiveness,
Oh, yeah,
because
I do.
you've certainly you've got it.
Mhm.
And I just hope that you are able to use this, because I know that you will. I mean, everybody has a story, and
Yeah,
got
everybody
a
does.
you got a big one. So
Mhm.
use it for His glory. All right, sweetheart.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.